There is a reason you don't feel as smart as you used to, and it has nothing to do with your intelligence. Shocker. What it does have everything to do with is knowing how your own mind works. Metacognition, the skill of noticing your thoughts, questioning them, and choosing what you do in real time. How you stop being dragged around by the loudest voice in your head and actually start choosing who gets a say. I grew up thinking that smart meant how fast I could memorize things or how many facts I could spit out or how I was taking standardized tests. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anyways, in high school, our SAT scores felt like part of our identity, and it was kind of tormenting, for me at least. But as an adult, that version of smart is honestly pretty outdated. We evaluate ourselves differently now, and it's not about how much we can stuff into our brain the night before a test anymore, but at the same time, how exactly are we evaluating this? If you've ever thought to yourself, I used to be sharp, what happened to me? A lot of the time, it's not that your brain got worse, it's that no one ever taught you this different form of intelligence, being aware of what your mind is doing while it's doing it. So metacognition has two parts that sound really fancy, but are actually just really, really simple. First, awareness of your thinking. So being able to notice, oh, I'm zoning out, or like, I'm a bit overconfident right now, or my personal favorite, I actually have no idea what they're talking about. And second is regulation. So being able to adjust in response to those thoughts. That looks like slowing down or changing strategies or asking for help or deciding to come back with a fresh brain instead of white knuckling it through. That combination, the awareness plus regulation, is what lets you work with your brain instead of just hoping that it will behave. Think of it like this. There are two students. You've got Jack and Jill. Jack is super fast. He reads quickly, he finishes tests early, he looks naturally gifted. If you went through the American school system, do you remember TAG, talented and gifted? The bane of my existence. But that right there is Jack. Jill, on the other hand, she's a little slower on paper, okay? But she is constantly checking in with herself. She's asking questions like, do I actually get this? Is this strategy working? Should I reread this part? And research shows that Jill, the one with strong metacognition, often ends up learning more deeply and solving problems better and making fewer repeat mistakes over time. Hell yeah, Jill. Metacognition is what lets you notice, wait, this is not clicking for me. I need a different approach, which is exactly what we want instead of mindlessly pushing through and calling yourself stupid when it doesn't work. It also feeds into what we think of as creativity and intelligence. People that have a higher metacognitive ability are better at divergent thinking, so coming up with lots of ideas, and then convergent thinking, choosing the ones of those ideas that actually make sense. So we want to be doing less in the arena of thinking harder and more in the arena of thinking wiser. And that is trainable. Let me show you. If you zoom in on the brain, metacognition has a little place that it lives, and it's the prefrontal cortex. It's the part of your brain behind your forehead that handles planning, self-control, and monitoring what you're doing. There's other regions like areas in the parietal cortex that help you judge things like, how confident am I in this answer? Or does this actually make sense what I am saying? Basically, it's your internal, do I really know this meter? And then you have regions like the anterior cingulate cortex, which sounds kind of complex, but it's just your brain's error detector. So it lights up when something feels off or when your expectations do not match reality. All of these areas talk to each other, forming a network that supports metacognition. The best part of this network changes with practice and experience, which means your metacognition is not fixed at all. As I've been discovering metacognition and doing a lot of this research, it began to kind of feel more and more like the practice of just being kind to your own mind. For example, you would notice a thought like, I'm failing, or I always mess this up. And instead of instantly believing it, going, okay, that's a thought, not a fact, let's run it back. That tiny pause is a form of intelligence, literally. It is the moment that you stop treating every feeling like an emergency and every thought like the truth. There's a line that I love that captures this in its full essence. The true test of intelligence is being able to consider a thought without immediately accepting or rejecting it. That's metacognition. You're not smashing the thought down or blindly obeying it either. You're simply holding it up to the light and asking, do I actually want to keep this? Now, here's the part that stings a little. You cannot develop metacognition if you've never actually sat with your own thoughts. And our phones are basically training us to never do that. We've got all these micro discomforts that pop up. So you feel awkward or bored or anxious, and your hand just auto reaches for your phone. That cycle means that there's almost no space to notice what's going on or the patterns in your inner world and have the ability to ask, why am I thinking this way right now? Constant notifications and multitasking have been linked to more fragmented attention and more reactive behavior, which makes it harder to monitor and regulate your thinking in the moment. So it's not all that shocking if you feel less sharp than you used to. Your environment has become perfectly optimized to keep you from ever checking in with yourself. What psychology calls metacognition is very similar to what a lot of ancient traditions called the witness. In Indian philosophy, there's the idea of drashta bhav. I googled it, I still might be butchering it, but drashta bhav, the stance of the seer, the one who observes thoughts and feelings rise and pass without getting swallowed by them. And in Buddhism, there's mindfulness practices that train you to watch that stream of thoughts without connecting with every single one of them, like clouds kind of passing through the sky. We did not invent this. We just kind of gave it a new label and then somewhere along the way stopped practicing it. I am a big therapy person. If you've ever done cognitive behavioral therapy or even just followed mental health TikTok, you most definitely know metacognition without calling it that. A big part of CBT is cognitive restructuring, which is just like a fancy term for 1, identifying your automatic thoughts, 2, noticing how they distort reality, and 3, deliberately replacing them with more balanced ones. It's metacognition packaged up in like a cute little tool belt. So you're training yourself to step back after a thought and ask, is this accurate and helpful? And then, what is another way I can see this? Personally, this style of thinking changed a lot for me. I used to be a very pessimistic person and always saw myself as someone who was not doing enough, who was not being enough, XYZ. And those were the thoughts that were continuously running in my mind. And this gave me language and structure for something I was already trying to do, which was to question my own brain, but in a way didn't feel like I was just bullying myself into being positive. My biggest takeaway is that it taught me how to think more accurate and useful thoughts instead of just happier thoughts. Now, let me walk you through a tiny version of cognitive restructuring that you can do on your own without paying a therapist hundreds of dollars. So step number 1, you're going to catch that thought. Now write down the loudest sentence in your brain right now, or think of the loudest sentence in your brain right now. Is it something like, I'm going to fail this project, or nobody actually likes me, or I always ruin things? Pause for a second if you need to. Once you have that in mind, let's go to step number 2. Examine the evidence. Ask 2 questions. What is the evidence for this thought, and what is the evidence against this thought? Most of the time, you will notice a pattern. Your harshest thoughts are feelings kind of dressed up as facts. Step number 3 is to rewrite a more balanced thought. So you don't have to jump from I'm a failure to I'm incredible and I am perfect, because that just feels fake. Instead, aim for something more like, this is hard and I've made mistakes, but I have done hard things before. Or, part of me feels like a failure right now, but that doesn't mean I actually am one. And step number 4, notice how your body responds. Usually, the new thought feels a tiny bit lighter, and that shift, that experience of, oh, I'm not trapped in the first thought my brain throws at me, that is metacognition wiring itself. Every time you do this, you're proving to yourself, I can consider a thought without automatically believing it. But somebody said you can't change your first thought, but you can always change your second. And I really like that, and I try to live by it. I really do. If I think a horrible thought about myself, I say, okay, I couldn't necessarily do anything about thought number 1, but what is thought number 2? Now, let's put all of this into really simple habits that you can use in daily life. Habit number 1. The 1 breath pause. Before you respond to a text, an email, or a comment that spikes your nervous system, take 1 intentional breath. Inhale, exhale. Then ask, what am I thinking right now? What story am I telling myself? That little micro delay is often enough for your prefrontal cortex, the part that does the self-control and the monitoring, to come back online instead of letting your emotional autopilot slam send. Habit number 2 is to question the thought, not yourself. Instead of saying, why am I like this? Try, why is my brain giving me this thought right now? You can also ask, is this thought useful, or is it just really loud? Is it a fact or a feeling pretending to be a fact? You are putting the thought on trial, not your worth as a person. And habit number 3, talk to yourself out loud. This one's my favorite thing to do. It sounds a little unhinged, but it works, I promise. And when you say your thoughts out loud, you slow them down and you hear how extreme or unfair they sound out loud. And then you get a chance to kind of respond to them instead of just absorbing them. If a thought is actually said out loud and you imagined it being said to your best friend or a family member or someone that you love and you care about, and they would be like, ow, probably not a useful, helpful, or true thought. So I can literally say now, okay, brain, you're telling me I'm a failure because of one awkward conversation. That's a bit dramatic. And habit number 4, track your mental loops. So once or twice a week, write down what thoughts keep repeating, what situations triggered them. Maybe you notice every time someone gives me feedback, I jump straight into, I'm useless. Patterns are much easier to change than one-off moments. So once you start seeing that pattern in the loop, you can plan for it. Okay, next time I get feedback, I already know my brain will say that I'm useless, and I will be ready to actually question it. And now, in order to actually accomplish this, we need some tools to help protect this work and give us space to think. I have added a layer between me and my phone, so focus is the easy option, not the heroic one. With Opal's autofocus, I don't have to remember to protect my attention in the exact moment I'm weakest. It learns my calendar and my patterns and steps in right before my willpower fails. So for example, if I have a commitment at 10 a.m., at 9:55, Opal automatically blocks these apps, most likely to steal that hour. So instead of me bargaining with my phone, I actually have uninterrupted space to notice what I'm thinking and how I am feeling. I've said this before, it's like autofocus on a camera. Instead of manually fiddling with this thing every video, I am able to trust that this tool will handle the friction so my brain is free to focus on what actually matters, showing up right here. And that is exactly what autofocus does for my brain. Now also, the other shift is that my inner world isn't just vibes anymore. I can literally see how much space I gave my mind that day. My focus score uses real data from my phone, so things like my first and last pickups, the amount of times I've picked up my phone, notifications, the amount of time I spent on different apps, all of that to show me when my attention was scattered and when I actually really protected it. Looking at that number feels like looking at a mental health vital sign. Like I can connect, oh, my focus score dropped last night with, right, that was the night I doom scrolled instead of journaling. And then suddenly my patterns and my thoughts make a lot more sense. It kind of turns this metacognition into something that I can track, which as a data nerd, I love. I think my current streak is like 180 days, and that is proof that I have given my brain real space. And I have over 450 friends on Opal, many of them being you guys, and you should comment and let me know if you actually are one of those friends on Opal. But it's the best feeling to know that there are other people at the same time around the world choosing to give their minds space to. So the thing that I want you to really understand is that this is not a personality trait you either have or you don't. So studies show that when people are taught metacognitive strategies, planning, monitoring, and evaluating their thinking, they're learning and problem solving and decision making all improve. Also, we become better at both coming up with creative ideas and choosing which ones are actually useful, which is a huge part of what we experience as being smart. You are not stuck with the level of self-awareness that you have right now. You can build it like a muscle, one tiny pause, one questioned thought at a time. And that first step is building a relationship with your own mind, learning how it talks, what stories it likes to tell itself, and how to lovingly push back when those stories are way off. And that's where the upgrade begins. So I'm curious, what is one mental habit, maybe something that you already do, or something that you think you'd like to try that could help you make you feel smarter? Let me know. And if you are interested in protecting your focus with me, you can download Opal and add me as a friend at olivia.unplugged. And it is time for me to unplug. And I'm going to go sit with my thoughts for a little while and see what comes up. Just like this. Haha, just kidding. Bye.